Welcome to Sewing Anastasia, and today I'm going to show you how to take in a dress to fit you perfectly. Today we're going to be taking in a vintage 1960s ship dress. There's no waist seam in this dress, so it's going to be real simple just to be able to go down the side seams, remove the arms, take in the arms, and put it back together. There are so many different styles of dresses out there, which means there are so many different methods for taking in dresses. So this method is going to be very specific to this style of dress, which is a ship dress with 2 bust darts and no waist. For your supplies, you're gonna need one dress with no waist. You're going to need some matching thread. You're also gonna need some scissors. Don't forget your seam ripper, your chalk, and your pins. Now, let's get started. I'm going to be pinning this dress on the dress form inside out. If you do not have a dress form, feel free to put it on yourself and use the mirror to put in the pins, or if you have a friend around, put it on yourself and have them help you pin it. Now let's go over to the dress form and start this project. Now let's take our dress and turn it inside out. And once you've turned it inside out, go ahead and put it on your dress form, whichever method you're using. Now that we have our dress on the dress form, we are going to tailor it and make it fit perfect. Now grab your pins and we are going to tailor this dress. So when I'm using my pins, I'm going to take in the sides and I'm going to put the pin in the front, and it's coming out the back and then back into the back and out the front. So you can see how your pin should look. Now go ahead and take it in all the way down, or as much or as little as you need to take this in. And after we do both sides, we can always assess the fit and go back and adjust our pins. And if you need your arm taken in, like I've taken in here, you can also take in your arm. So same thing, just place the pin in and out of the fabric to take it in, so that way when you try it on, you can get a good judgment of how the new fit will be. Now that you've pinned one side, go ahead and do the exact same thing to the other side. That looks great. Since this is a ship dress, I don't want it to be skin tight on the dress form, but I do want it to be fitted and tailored. Now that we have it all pinned, it's a great time to try this on if you're using a dress form to see if you need to make any further adjustments. And once you've decided that, you can take it off the dress form, and we're gonna go back over to the table and do some chalking. Grab your chalk and we are gonna chalk where the pins are. This way we will have a line to follow when we're sewing. So go ahead and put a chalk line on the front and on the back where the pin is. Now go ahead and chalk the other side of the dress, and you can take the pins out now as well. Now that we have chalk marks on the dress, we want to grab our ruler and we're going to draw a nice straight line on the dress to follow when we're sewing. Now I've drawn this horizontal line where the notch for the waist was on this dress. If you don't have a notch for where the waist is, find where your actual waist is on this dress, and I'm going to draw a horizontal line. This is going to be important for me because I've fitted it to where it comes in at the waist a little and then it's coming back out on the hips. So our first line is gonna go from our underarm to our waist. So line up your ruler with that first mark for your underarm, and then also line it up with your waist. And then go ahead and draw a smooth line from your underarm to your waist. So now you can see how we caught those little marks in there where the pins were. So there's our first line. And now we're gonna go from our waist to our hip. So now I'm going to line up the waist to my hip, and then I want to make sure I blend back into the seam that's already here. Where I'm putting the yellow chalk, this is already my existing seam on the dress. So I want to blend back into that. So you can see how nice and smooth this line is going to be from our underarm to our waist to our hip. Now we've moved over to the arm, and we're going to draw a line from our underarm seam to our forearm. So we want to connect these lines. So underarm to forearm, and then smoothly back into the stitch line that's on our sleeve. Now go ahead and do the exact same thing on the other side of the dress. Also, make sure you measure your underarm, your waist, your hip, and your forearm, and these measurements and points on the dress to make sure they match the other side of the dress, because we don't want to end up with a lopsided dress. And once you're done with that, it's time to go to the sewing machine. Before I start sewing, I like to pin both layers of my fabric together, so that way I know my bottom layer is not moving on me. I know I just took out all those pins, but I went ahead and put the pins back in horizontally, so that way they're easy to take out while I'm sewing. Today I'm going to be sewing on the Husqvarna Viking Designer Epic, but you can use any home sewing machine to complete this project. Make sure you have your machine set to a straight stitch. When we start, we want to make sure we are starting on the stitch line that is already there, so that way there's no bumps or bubbles when we turn our dress right side out. So go ahead and place the needle in the seam that is already there. We want to make sure we backstitch. And follow that seam until you start blending it into the chalk line that you've created. Make sure you take your pins out before you get them, and always make sure your fabric is nice and smooth. Now we're coming up to the armhole. It's okay to sew over the armhole and down the sleeve. Make sure that your armhole is lined up on the front and the back, and that the seam allowances are open. We're almost to the end, and it's really important to make sure that you're blending the stitch line back into the seam that's already here, so it's smooth. Backstitch and cut. We did it! Now go ahead and do the exact same thing to the other side. Now that we have our dress taken in, you're going to have extra fabric. This here is our new seam line, and the one way over here to the right is our other one. So there's lots of extra fabric in here. You can go ahead and cut it off, or you could seam rip open that original seam line and iron it flat open. This really depends on how much fabric you have in there. I'm gonna go ahead and seam rip it open and iron it flat. This here is the armpit. It's gonna be a little difficult to seam rip. Take your time. There we go. I have my seam allowance inside open. Now go ahead and do the same thing to the other side. Iron it down, and we're done. Try on your dress and see how it fits. Thanks so much for watching Sew Anastasia today. I hope you had fun taking in a dress with me. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down below. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And as always, follow me on Instagram at Sew Anastasia and Anastasia Chatzka. If you're in Chicago, stop by, take a sewing class with me. You can sign up at sewanastasia.com. Make sure you hit that notification button so you can watch all of my other videos. I have a new video come out every Friday. Information about everything down below. Thanks so much for watching.